The terrible truth about Errol Flynn. Errol Flynn's name will likely forever be associated with swashbuckling films. Handsome, charismatic, and beloved by the camera, Flynn won hearts playing a number of heroes who swooped in to save the day and win the girl. In real life, he mostly won the girl, or make that girls. Flynn was a bit of a hellraiser, so much so that when his autobiography was released after his death, what he wrote shocked the public. Find out the terrible truth about Errol Flynn and why he'll remain one of Hollywood's most memorable stars. Birth of a star. Flynn was born Errol Leslie Thompson Flynn on the 20th of June 1909 in Tasmania to Australian parents. As a young boy, his family lived in Papua New Guinea for a while before they returned to Australia. He was sent to grammar school but was soon expelled. It wasn't and wouldn't be the first time. Flynn would be expelled several times from different schools. He calmed down a bit to finish 2 years of schooling beginning in 1923 at London's Southwest London College. He again returned to Australia to enroll at the Sydney Church of England Grammar School. Again, he was expelled, apparently for theft. Flynn, already building a myth around himself, claimed that it was because he had sexual relations with the laundress. He started to earn money on his own by taking on jobs, becoming a junior clerk and gold miner. Although he became engaged to a young woman in 1931, the marriage didn't push through. Discovery. Flynn's dashing looks were instrumental in landing him his first role. In 1933, his photographs caught the eye of an Australian film producer who cast him in the lead role of Fletcher Christian for In the Wake of the Bounty, a semi-documentary film. Although the film was not a hit, Flynn was hooked. He decided to join Northampton Repertory Company in London, leading to several roles in films. Eventually, he was signed by Warner Brothers in the US. Flynn's star turn came in the form of a dropped role in Captain Blood. The original lead actor dropped out of the adventure film and Warner Brothers decided to cast Flynn. The lead actress in the film was a still teenaged Olivia de Havilland, who would eventually work with Flynn in several of his popular films. The role was followed by other roles, which were mostly costume dramas that featured Flynn as a swashbuckler. In 1938, Flynn starred in The Adventures of Robin Hood, a successful film that made him a bigger star. 2 years later, Flynn was an established Hollywood star, ranking at number 14 as the most popular actor in the United States. In the UK, he ranked number 7. The Tasmanian Devil. Flynn was known by a number of nicknames, such as the Rake and the Tasmanian Devil. He did little to shed these associations. In fact, he encouraged them. Flynn liked his drink and was often at parties where he would consume copious amounts of whiskey and sleep with numerous women. He also got in a lot of trouble. He would often be so disruptive and belligerent that he would get thrown out of parties and/or engage in fisticuffs with other men. At one point, he and director John Huston engaged in a brawl while shooting The Roots of Heaven. Huston sent him to sleep with just one punch. Flynn's drinking reputation became so notorious that most sets would prohibit him from ever touching alcohol and it wouldn't be served. To compensate, he would take oranges and use a syringe to inject the fruits with vodka. His health would suffer because of his bad habit later in his life. Flynn the actor. Although he appeared in numerous films and over 20 theater performances, Flynn was, according to him, not a high-caliber actor. One of his eminent co-stars, Academy Award winner Bette Davis, reportedly didn't like Flynn. In some of their scenes together, Flynn accused her of deliberately slapping him too hard. Davis supposedly didn't have a lot of respect for the actor because she agreed that he didn't know anything about acting. Protected by the studio system. Flynn attempted to enlist in the U.S. military to serve during World War II. Unfortunately, he did not pass due to several health issues. The studio didn't want the public to know that Flynn was far from healthy and tried to cover up the rejection. However, word still got out that Flynn dodged the draft. In his later years, he considered his failure to serve as his only regret in life. Flynns Women. Flynn had numerous dalliances with the ladies, including some of Hollywood's most popular stars. He reportedly even slept with willing fans. One prominent leading lady of his who seemed to have avoided his charms was de Havilland. She did admit that they'd fallen in love, but that she didn't want anything to do with Flynn because he was married at the time. Flynn made no secret about his love for alcohol and women. He was even quoted as saying that he liked his whiskey old and his women young. Unfortunately, this declaration proved to be true. In 1942, Flynn was slapped with 2 statutory rape charges by Peggy Satterley and Betty Hansen. Both girls were just 17 years old at the time. Flynn won the case, mainly through the help of highly talented lawyers who questioned the girls' characters and motivation. Although the public took his side, Flynn's reputation took a beating. The Cuban Connection. Flynn was an admirer of Fidel Castro, even producing the movie Cuban Rebel Girls in 1958. He was with Castro when the latter won the revolution, the only journalist who was present. Flynn also wrote numerous articles about his time with the Cuban strongman. For a while, these articles were lost but were later rediscovered. Drinking and drugging. Flynn's capacity for alcohol was reportedly massive, but it was not the only substance he ingested with gusto. His second wife, actress Nora Eddington, reported that Flynn was also keen on expanding his physical experiences, so he was not afraid to try stronger drugs like opium. Unfortunately, opium became the source of much struggle for the actor due to his addiction. Raising John Barrymore. Flynn ran with a crowd that was as wild as he was. One of his friends, director Raoul Walsh, reportedly played a morbid prank on the actor. When John Barrymore died, Walsh was supposed to have paid the mortician to allow him to take Barrymore's body to Flynn's home. Walsh then propped the body onto a chair and placed a drink in one hand. When Flynn came home and opened the door, he saw Barrymore's body and screamed. The House on Mulholland Drive. Flynn built his dream home on Mulholland Drive. The colonial-style house sat on an 11-acre property. He called the property Mulholland Farm, but in private he referred to it as the Playhouse. The house was reportedly the site of Flynn's many wild parties. True to his devil-may-care approach to life, Flynn designed the house in such a way as to allow him to spy on other people without them knowing. The house had secret passageways with walls that had hidden peepholes so he could look into bathrooms and had two-way mirrors installed. He also placed microphones in certain rooms so he could listen to what his guests were discussing. The Last Young One. 2 years before he died, Flynn met Beverly Adland, a 15-year-old secretary and actress. Their relationship was encouraged and was reportedly arranged by the girl's mother. Adland was with Flynn when he began to complain about severe pain that would later lead to his death. Later years. Initially, Flynn enjoyed public support, even after his statutory rape case. However, even the strong Hollywood studio system could not protect him from a judging public. With his image tarnished, Flynn's career stalled. His lifestyle and bad habits also began to take a toll on his health, and his looks suffered. Even when he appeared in subsequent films, he looked older and tired. Although he was paid well, Flynn was not a savvy businessman, and as a result, lost significant amounts of money due to bad investments. To boost his finances, he decided to go to Europe for work. In 1956, he returned to the U.S. and enjoyed a short revitalization of his career, mostly due to excellent performances in films such as The Sun Also Rises, The Roots of Heaven, and Too Much, Too Soon. In The Sun Also Rises, he played the lead character in the adaptation of the Ernest Hemingway novel. Hemingway reportedly only enjoyed watching the scenes where Flynn appeared. Although the films gave Flynn a renewed sense of purpose and brief resurgence, he seemed to have been playing characters that were much too much like his real-life persona. These roles involved self-destructive drunks, who Flynn played so well that some critics believed he may not have been acting. He also dabbled in TV work, hosting the Errol Flynn Theater that showcased his versatility. Wicked Ways. In 1959, Flynn decided to publish his autobiography. Initially, he wanted the title to be In Like Me, as a nod to the expression in like Flynn. This expression referred to his smooth ability to seduce women. However, his publisher rejected the idea and suggested what would ultimately be his book's title, which was My Wicked, Wicked Ways. The autobiography contained sensational details, some of which were disputed, but it was Flynn's way to let the world know who he was, or at least who he thought he was. Flynn's loyal companion. Arguably, one of the most stable relationships that Flynn ever had was with a dog, a schnauzer named Arno. The dog was trained as a protector and often accompanied Flynn to clubs, parties, and premieres. The dog's unquestionable loyalty was in full show in 1938 when Flynn, in a scene with Bette Davis, was struck by his co-star. The dog, who was present on the set, rose to his defense and promptly bit Davis on her ankle. Gone too soon. Flynn's hedonistic lifestyle likely led to his early physical decline. In 1959, he was struggling with serious financial issues, prompting him to offer his yacht, Zaka, for lease to George Caldo, a Canadian businessman. Flynn flew to Vancouver, British Columbia with his companion, the underage Adland. 5 days later, Caldo drove the pair to the airport, but Flynn began to complain of severe back and leg pain. Caldo decided to bring him to a doctor who thought that Flynn was suffering from the effects of spinal osteoarthritis and degenerative disc disease. The doctor gave him Demerol through IV and the pain went away. The doctor then massaged Flynn's legs and told him to rest before returning to LA. Flynn replied that he felt better, but when Adland came to check on him 20 minutes later, he was unresponsive. He was swiftly transferred to a hospital but died in the evening. The coroner ruled his death as a heart attack caused by coronary thrombosis and atherosclerosis. Flynn also had serious cirrhosis and fatty degeneration of the liver. His body was sent back to LA and buried at the Forest Lawn Memorial Park Cemetery, a place he hated. 6 bottles of his favorite whiskey were buried with him. A lost son. Flynn's 3 marriages produced 4 children, 3 daughters and a son. Sean, whose mother was Lily Demita. Sean tried acting for a while but pursued journalism and became a Time magazine war correspondent. He flew to Vietnam to cover the conflict but disappeared in 1970 while in Cambodia. His body was never found. Bette Davis's retraction. In 1970, de Havilland attended a screening of Elizabeth and Essex with Bette Davis. This was a film where Flynn starred opposite Davis. After the screening, Davis declared that Flynn was not only good, but he was marvelous. Davis uncharacteristically stated that she'd been wrong all along. Legacy. Flynn might never have won an award for his acting, but he paved the way for the Hollywood action star. The good-looking guy who meant well, who has come to save the day and maybe get the girl. He was the bad boy who played one on screen with joy and aplomb, and despite his many shortcomings, will likely be remembered with kindness by film fans.